How do you come up with this?
This is what it's like to be a BCBA. I'm not really sure I want to do this anymore. Oh, funny story, actually, like my water broke mid squat.
Really? Why couldn't you just be my BCBA instructor when I was in graduate school? Like, this makes way more sense.
And then so one day she just like asked me, "So like you're my therapist?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "So like are you trying to fix me?" And when she said that to me, it just like broke my heart.
Hi, I'm Dom, the BCBA mom, and welcome back to my channel. So, you are in for a treat today. Coming to the stage, we have a board certified game changer. She's
Mhm.
BCBA, she's a licensed behavior analyst in New York and New Jersey, a mental health counseling graduate student, which we're going to get into. She's the brain behind the Behaviorfy. When you think of Behaviorfy, you could think of her content on Instagram. You could think of her digital products or her videos. Like, she's doing so much under Behaviorfy, which is how I found her on Instagram. Her focus and her work is really in creating content to strengthen the supervision process. Like, how many of us have horror stories from supervision? How many of us want to be a supervisor and are terrified because we don't know how to get started, or we don't want anyone under us and we don't feel like we have those leadership skills to get them to the next spot? So that is her expertise, that is her hard work, and just really helping people to understand this science in a way that is so relatable, so engaging. I mean, some of the stuff I scroll on her Instagram, I'm like, how do you come up with this? I'm like, from Mean Girls references, the Clueless references, the SpongeBob reference, like all of it. But then it makes so much more sense. I'm like, why couldn't you just be my BCBA instructor when I was in graduate school? Like, this makes way more sense. Not only is she doing all of that, but she is a new mother of a beautiful baby girl. She's also the mom of a wonderful Labradoodle. She is a force in the field. And if you know, you know. And if you don't, buckle up because you are about to find out. So get ready to be behaviorified. Everyone, welcome Miss Rosie, Miss Behaviorfy.
Wow, that was one hell of an introduction. I have goosebumps. Like, quite literally.
That's how I feel when I read your content.
I appreciate everything you just said. Just one thing. Nala is a Labrador. She would be very offended.
Oh, I'm sorry. The folks who don't know, tell us, how did you become this behavior analyst? Because I don't think anyone has a resume quite like this.
Again, you keep just flattering me. Well, yeah, like you said, I am a BCBA. I'm licensed in New York and New Jersey. And I am also in my last semester now, gonna finish my last semester of my graduate program in mental health. I had to take a semester off because of baby. But I'm one semester away, just this one, and then we'll be done. And I'm also an intern in that process. I am all about now, well, now the baby. But also that was her, if you heard her, she just sneezed. Bless you. I love Nala. She's like a huge part of my life and I go to the gym. That's my main hobby. My personal life is very simple. I just like, spending time with people I love, friends, family. I love traveling. Haven't been able to do it in a while for obvious reasons. And yeah, I'm just very passionate about just like creating a life that feels good for me and something that I can look forward to every day, which, I know we'll talk more about, but that is kind of like what drove the force into like, okay, I need to create something. And at the beginning, I wasn't really sure what it was going to turn into, but definitely like the core reason behind pretty much everything I do at this point.
Okay. So they say when you sit in close proximity with someone who has a skill that you want, it may rub off on you. So hopefully by the end of this interview, I will be more motivated to go to the gym because you sounded really passionate about that part. So that's a goal of mine too.
I've been doing it for so long. It's like such a part of my life.
That's good.
Oh, funny story, actually, like my water broke mid squat.
Really? So you worked out your whole pregnancy.
Yeah, of course, way less time, way less intensity. Everything was like baby safe. There were a lot of movements I couldn't do. But yeah, I did. The first trimester was the hardest because you're like tired and all
People
the
don't know
fatigue and
that
stuff.
you're so tired the first trimester, and people don't even know you're pregnant So they just
Yeah.
think that you're a sleepy girl all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I love how you did it like the whole way through and you like, represented the girls who do that. Because sometimes I would go to the gym with my belly and people would look at me like, are you okay?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Like being a BCBA and being pregnant, you can't be as inconspicuous as you used to be, right?
Mhm.
You come in, observe behavior, kind of just sit to the side. But when you're pregnant, it's like, oh, the baby. And I'm like, that's reactivity. We want
Yeah.
that. I want to see
Yeah.
you. So yeah. Let's get into some fire questions that I have for you that's really been on my mind. So what was the moment you knew you had to become a BCBA? And not just a BCBA who passed the exam, but a BCBA who is a change in the field.
That's a really good question. So when I became a BCBA, it was like a big transition period because I passed the board exam and I moved to New York by myself like 20 days later, not even.
Okay.
Um, so I moved to New York and my first job as BCBAs, we would just do everything. Like we didn't work supervising BTs. We kind of worked in groups, like teams of BCBAs, and we would do the direct therapy, the paperwork, the assessments, everything like that. So it was kind of like a different experience. I feel like a lot of BCBAs are pushed into supervision. So there were, there were some pros with that, like the support and the growth and teams, being able to ask questions to other BCBAs and stuff like that. But as I was in this role, I just kept kind of reflecting back to me being a BT and the things that now, I guess, because when you're a BT, of course, you have to answer to a BCBA. You have more you have less freedom, I guess. Like there are things that you kind of have to do, even if you don't quite understand, which by the way, I am a big proponent of like BT should be asking questions if you don't know. But at the time I didn't know that. I was like, okay, I guess I'll do what you're telling
Yeah.
me. And so now being in this role where it's like, there's more freedom, I get more space to do like make decisions in the moment and like, yeah, we work together, but there was still more freedom. I kept reflecting back to like my BT days, and there was this like one experience that I had with a client. She was very, very talkative. She liked to have conversations. And then so one day she just like asked me, so like, you're my therapist? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, so like, are you trying to fix me? And when she said that to me, it just like broke my heart because I just kept wondering, like, where did she get that from? Like, where did she hear that? Like, who told her that? And it was just like very, very, I guess, like, obviously, I didn't internalize it as like, oh my God, that's still hurtful. Like, how can you think that I'm trying to fix you? But it was hurtful in the sense of like, for her, like, why do you think that there's something that we're fixing? Why is that we're fixing, instead of helping to improve and
Yeah.
all of the other words that you can use. Where's that word coming from? So I feel like that always like echoed in my mind. And actually, as I was trying to come up with the idea of Behaviorfy, I like one day I just recorded an audio letting all my thoughts out of like the state of ABA, but this was back in 2020. So things have changed a lot. There's just been the rise in the neurodiversity movement. There's a lot more awareness, acceptance now in 2025. But back in that time, all that stuff was kind of new, like from COVID, the rise of TikTok and things like that. So in that time, these conversations that now we have so commonly were not really being had.
Absolutely.
So that's when I guess I realized like, okay, I feel like I want to be a BCBA who like moves away from whatever we've done that has created in these children the idea that they need to be fixed,
Mhm.
or in the parents even,
Yes.
because I don't know where she heard that. Maybe she
That's
heard it from
fair.
a parent.
Yeah.
Maybe she heard it from a teacher, whatever, So I just wanted to move away from that perspective, and that's really what fueled like the content that I started to make.
Actually, that's a response that only experience can teach you, right? You only know what you know. So as a BT, and for those of you who don't know, I was a BT as well. I was never an RBT because at one point that wasn't even a requirement. So I was a BT as well, and I just did what I was told, right? And no one has ever asked me like, "Are you here to fix me?" But there was I work with adults, and there was a gentleman, whenever I would come, he would dismiss me as if like, when you're here, I'm in trouble. And I'm like, who paired me with the Punisher? You know what I mean? Like, that's not how I even approach therapy. So yeah,
Yeah,
conversations are not being had. And then when our BTs or our RBTs have these questions come up, how can they be neural affirming and not feeding into this narrative that you are a problem to be fixed, and like
right.
truly believing that in their heart, and that only comes through a supervisor who gives them
Hmm.
permission to think that way. Because
Yeah,
we were like, it didn't say that in the assessment, it didn't say,
right.
it just stick to the script, the data, the graph. Like, they don't leave room for humility. What happens when a person asks you that question? What should be the response, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so no, that would have moved me as well to say, oh, okay,
Mhm.
we are missing a step.
Yeah, missing a
Okay.
big piece, like,
Yeah.
and there was a point too, I remember when I was studying for the test, again, like all this was happening like 2019, 2020, and I was so hard into the science. Like, I mean, I like it, so that's why I created like the products and like the study stuff. So I was so hard into the science. I remember having a conversation with someone who was like questioning the functions of behavior. And I was like, no, this person was not in the field, by the way. I was like, oh, no way, like there's only four, like that's it. Like, and they were like, but what about this? But what about that? And I was like, no, like I would just shut it down. Like this is the science. Like this is what we have. And so I was so like, like focused on the hard skills.
Yeah.
But then I was like, wait, I think I missed something here. I think I missed something that's going to be more important past the test, which is the soft skills and the compassion and the all that stuff that's harder to teach.
It's
It is very hard to teach.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point, because when you're in that mindset of testing and studying, you just got out of grad school, you have terms coming in and out of your ears, like, you are in that mindset. You're in research mindset. You are, and those soft skills, some of them are never learned unless you
Yeah.
have the right group of people around you. You are taking the right CEUs. You have the right mentor or supervisor. So, yeah, I could definitely see where there was a gap to be
Mhm.
filled.
I think I'm gonna have to pause and put the carrier on. She's
Okay.
getting mad.
All right, we are back with another special guest. We are joined by Miss Aaliyah, and
But
she wanted to be with mommy during this interview. So welcome. Anytime throughout your ABA journey, whether that was you were studying for the exam or actually a BCBA, has there ever been a time where you felt like, I don't have to do this? Like, I am walking away from the field, or I need to walk away from the field. And what did that look like, if so?
yeah, so I have talked about this a few times on Instagram because anytime I do like an ask me something box, people always ask like, "How was your first year as a BCBA? Like, have you ever experienced burnout, stuff like that?" And it all goes back to this one job, because as a former BT RBT, I had seen the gap also there in the training, and like if you don't have the appropriate supervision, what can happen to services. So I was like, okay, that's cool because you're gonna have BCBAs doing the therapy. So that was different to me. And at first I loved it. Um, because I felt like it was a lot of teamwork, collaboration. But after a while, I was really burned out because it was like you had to do everything.
Yeah.
You have to do the paperwork, the data analysis, the therapy, the parent training. You have to do everything. And it became a lot. And on top of that, I had that New York City commute, which was I had a client that was like an hour and a half one way, and I had him a couple times a week.
A commute in general can make you want to just walk away from the field. I feel like there were times where I was spending most of my week in the car.
Yep. I was in the train.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah.
Which, by the way, that's where one of the ideas for my workbook came up because I was so bored and I
Okay.
had like my iPad with me and I just started like tracing and doodling and I was like, this could be something. But
Yeah.
that's a whole other story. But yeah, I mean, it just became a lot. Everything became a lot. And then I did have some a personal situation happen that just was very, very difficult to manage. So my own personal stuff with the burnout, and then, just some situations with my bosses at the time, it just like it all just became a lot to bear. And in that moment, I was like, well, if this is what it's like to be a BCBA, I'm not really sure I want to do this anymore because it just doesn't feel sustainable. This role specifically does not feel sustainable. Mind you, I wasn't a supervisor, so that it was a different role. But in that moment, it's like what I knew was my role, my job. I was like, I don't know. And so at this point in time, it was 2022, was a very big like um shift year for me. I decided, you know what? I am not sure that I want to be a BCBA forever. So that's when I started to look into like what else I could do. And I have been contemplating for a while, but I kind of just pushed it aside, like, nah, I'm the type of person who like I get bored easily. I have to my day cannot look the same every single day.
Man,
It,
I have to break up the monotony somewhat.
yeah,
That's why
yeah,
I like when they introduce the hybrid schedule, or sometimes I don't mind the commute because at least I
yeah,
get to eat at a different diner
yeah.
in this
Something
city or
different.
go here and find things that, yes, so I'm the same way.
So I would push it aside, like, hey, you know how you are, you get bored easily. Maybe you're just like having a moment. But it just kept coming back up. So after this like personal situation happened, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do things that make me happy from now on. Like it was like a very big shift in like also my personal demeanor and perspective that obviously affected my professional life too. So I decided to go back to school. That's when I got Nala. Another thing I have been contemplating was like, should I get a dog? Should I not get a dog? There's such a big responsibility, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm just gonna get the dog. So I got her and no regrets with her either, and don't regrets with going back to school. And so I think it's not necessarily like I walked away from ABA because I haven't, and I don't think that I fully will. But when I think of like long term, I'm in the field, but more in a educational content, CEU content, like mentorship, stuff like that. I don't foresee being in a clinical role for the rest of my life. Not to say like maybe the next few years I will, but forever, ever, ever,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure. And I like the fact that eventually I will have an option. Like I could. But I also have this other thing. And again, as someone who gets bored easily,
Yeah.
I need something that's gonna keep me excited for like the rest of my life, you know? So still in a clinical role.
Okay.
I am. And again, like that's not to say that I won't be in the next few years. I just mean
Got
for
it.
the rest of my life, I'm not sure I want to ultimately terminal, you know?
Yeah, I say that all the time. I say, and actually I'm navigating, I'm actually in limbo with a few things. And that's why I was so interested in why you decided to go back to school for counseling, because it sounds like there is a need that is not being met just through behavior analysis. And
Mhm.
I feel the same way. It's like I'm a creative. My mind is like, idea, let's do something, let's do something, which is easy to apply ABA to all of those different settings and make money and make multiple streams of income. I love that you're setting your life up now so your future self is not resentful to this field,
Yeah.
because a lot of
Yeah.
people, they're getting burnt out a lot earlier, like a
Yeah.
lot earlier, and they're having these ideas of, okay, what's next now? Like, how can I start planning for that now? Because it's not sustainable in some
Yeah.
cases. And those are the experiences that will move you in the next direction, saying, like, okay, I really love it here, or this is not sustainable. Let me start planning for something that I also enjoy, like projects that can make you passive streams of income. Like you mentioned, you have a workbook and you started your workbook while on a commute to see a client. So just tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about your workbook.
Yeah, so well, I mean, before the workbook, I guess like when I started Behaviorfy, aside of the content, which we already covered, like kind of what I wanted to do, I wanted to talk more about this missing piece, right? From the hard science to the connection and the human aspect of things, which like if you take a look at my logo, which has been the same since the very beginning, there's small letters in the middle. If I'm not getting the words wrong, it has like the word science, and heart in it. So kind of like putting the science and our hearts into the science, not just like hard stuff all the time. And so that was that piece. When it came to the products, I actually started with the RBT stuff because, again, I was a new BCBA. First off, I didn't feel at the time yet confident to bring out BCBA products because, like, hey, I just got here.
No, that's
So I started with the RBT stuff. My first thing that I ever did before I even like published my page was an RBT 40-hour course, which took me forever and a year. It
I
took me
was
so
gonna say that's a huge project.
huge. I didn't realize how huge it was going to be. It took me, oof, almost a year,
Yeah.
almost a year, but it was in the works. And then now they're retiring that version, which is great. Just years of work down the drain, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Um, So I started with that and I started with an RBT study guide. So that those were my first like ever, products. Then was when the workbook idea just came up. So I would commute a lot with my iPad and a small laptop because I had to do something in those commutes. I could not just be like, and then you lose signal on your phone, so you can't really be on your phone that much. So I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? And then I had an Apple Pencil and I had that application Procreate, which by the way, when I first started my content, I would draw you know how now like I use Canva and like the digital little cute pieces, I would draw it. So it would take me forever to come up with a post.
Are you an
Um,
artist?
Not really. It's not hard when you use an Apple Pencil.
Really? Okay. I've never used one, but I mean, and I'm gonna like be adding images as we're talking so you guys can actually see what we're talking
I'll
about.
send you a picture of that old workbook because I don't have it anymore. This was like a long time ago. So I'll send you a picture of what like the little drawings used to look like.
Yes,
Because now it's
please.
much different. Now I've changed it a lot to the workbook. It's more like just the digital artwork. It's a lot of Canva stuff in the workbook, but before it was like my own little trace drawings and
Yeah.
people liked it. And so I was like, okay, so people are liking this. It's something different, I guess, that like the field didn't really have. It was a more visual way to like study in a light-hearted way. So that was probably, yeah, that was my first BCBA project because even though I was like newer, it was just like basic stuff, like the attitudes of science and just basic vocabulary and things like that. And then that built on to like, maybe I want to make like a more thorough study guide. And that's where the study guide idea came from, which the study guide has also gone through its many, many um, redos and updos. And, it's been a few years and I'm always changing it up. I'm always like, how can I make it better? How can I upgrade it? And then they changed the task list. So I had to change everything all over again. And this is what it's like to be a BCBA mom.
Well, let's get right into it. So you do have a 2 month old, right?
Mhm.
And what would you say is the most noticeable change from being a BCBA to being a BCBA mom? Public event and private event
Hmm. Good question. Public event, like you mean like my audience can notice?
that you can notice, your audience notice that you see in like your regular everyday life.
Mhm.
Maybe a day in the life has changed a little bit, but this is the most noticeable change.
This is different.
Yeah. And you actually, when you messaged me, so after I sent Rosie the invite, she was like, well, hey, thank you for the invite. I'm on maternity leave right now, and I usually have my baby on me in the carrier while working. And I was like, we have to show that. Like, we have to show how we maneuver and adjust to life while creating life.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
BCBAs as mothers, we have a little bit of a blueprint that maybe non-BCBA mothers have.
Hmm.
And we're like, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
We know how to
A
change behavior.
lot.
So it's like it never turns off almost.
Yep. I mean, with her, it's been a lot of my own behavior because when they're so little, it's kind of hard to
Mhm.
change theirs. So it's really mine, my, I guess, resilience to
Yeah.
things. and my patience, which a lot of people, like when you're a BCBA and you're in the ABA field, I don't know about you, but whenever I tell someone, they're like, oh my God, you must be so patient. But like, this is a whole other level.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a whole other level of patience. Like, I'm never mad at her. She's just a baby trying to survive. But I think, the biggest change for me is like, I mean, even hearing you say, like, my response to you, I was like, I'm on maternity leave, but I have the baby on me while I'm working. It's like, why are you working? So now I'm thinking about that. I'm like, I guess like a big change for me has been, and I've been reflecting on that this week actually, trying to like be okay with slowing down a little bit because I do want to spend time with her. Like I'm going back to school in 18 days, and that's already gonna naturally just like take some time away from her. So I'm like, okay, there's stuff I want and need to get done, but at the same time, I also want to spend time with her. Like I want to read her books and I want to do tummy time. And I sometimes I wake up and I'm like, okay, these are all the things I'm gonna do today, and I do like two of out of 10.
Yes.
So being okay with like, even though these things used to sound doable, now they might not really be. So like I can plan to sit here and work on, let's say, one study guide.
Mhm.
And
Right.
then wants to feed more, or she doesn't want to sleep when I thought she was going to sleep. So it's just a lot more flexibility. But the reason it's hard is because there's so much that I want to do and my brain needs it. Like I
Yeah.
cannot sit still for a long period of time. And with a baby, sometimes you do. Like, she nurses and then I burp her and then she falls asleep. And this happens multiple times a day. And it's like, okay, I could be in my mindfulness and be here with her for a little bit, but eventually my brain needs to be stimulated with something else. So that's been definitely a change, like being okay with doing less, but also more because she's here. Like it's not less, it's just different, but it feels like less in the aspect of work. And I'm not sure if that's a private or public change, but it is something that I've definitely, have just had to adapt to and like be okay with for my professional life. And at first, when I first went into maternity leave, I was like, I'm okay with not doing anything for Behaviorfy. Like as long as I can create content once a week, that's good enough for me. But then once I got in it, I was like, no, I could do it. But then I was like, I want to do more. But at the same time, just keep reminding myself, like, it's okay if you don't. It's okay if you don't. But in my mind, I'm like, "Ah, but I want to. Like, I genuinely want to. I enjoy what I do for Behaviorfy a lot. If I didn't, I honestly would take a full pause. But I
Yes.
really enjoy it. It really keeps me entertained, honestly. And I like it. So it's hard to like completely stop. It's kind of like almost like the gym for me. Like, I don't want to stop, even if I have to. It's difficult.
Yeah, that's how I am about content creating. And when you find a job that you love, so you're in ABA, but you've created this unique position where you get to disseminate in cool ways. It taps into your creativity. You get to use Canva and just like be this. So it is like something that's almost like self-care. Like that's how I feel about editing my YouTube videos. Like, oh, I found this new software. We're going to do this. We're going to add this. It finally comes together. It's like a Tetris game. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, that was so much fun.
Yeah.
I do get what you mean, and it's probably a private event and a public event because I had to like stop having my computer out all the time around my kids and
Mm.
say, well, just because I'm in their presence, like it's not enough. Like I actually have to close my computer. So I've set times around the house because if I'm in the zone, I can just keep
I feel that.
and doing all the things. And then on the top of that, session notes. And then I have to do behavior plan updates and supervision. So we have the type of job that can never turn off. Like there's always something we could be doing. So we do have to kind of set those boundaries of no, this is Leah's time. And
Mhm.
we're doing time, we're doing books. I'm not even thinking about emails until nap time or until that time that I set aside for that. And kind of pushing away the narrative of you're not doing enough. Like being
Mhm.
in itself and giving her your individualized time is absolutely enough.
Mm-hmm.
Creating your maternity leave how you need to create it. Like I've had a few maternity leaves and they never turned out the way I planned, right? Um, I remember one time I was literally finishing a treatment plan in labor, and I was like, oh, it's not like active labor, so let me just get it done so I don't have to do anything afterwards. And like that was a time in my life. And then as I got older and I realized, wow, these kids grow up really fast. I
Mm-hmm.
had to slow down and realize this isn't going anywhere. Behavior analysis isn't going anywhere. I'm not going to be obsolete if I don't put out a video every single day or every single week. But these
Mm-hmm.
kids are going to grow up and they're going to grow up with an image of, but my mom was around and,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yep.
she's awesome. You are definitely dropping the gems for all of the mothers out here who trying to figure it out or thinking about starting a family and seeing like, how is that going to fit into my life as a BCBA?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a really quick question about your content. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so just talking about content, I think is very real, relatable. And during that part in your ABA career when you are studying, it's good to have some comic relief. It's good to have some study material that's like some of those articles are so hard to get through. So just to have that pulled into something that is characters that representation of who you are, but then you also like will have these captions that are like job. Where does that come from? How do you just pick a regular picture and then bring ABA into it in a way that it gets shared across the internet thousands and thousands of times?
Interestingly enough, I feel like I developed a really big passion for writing when I was in 12th grade. I had this like amazing English teacher. We were taking a college credit class, and this professor, she was like amazing at teaching writing. People hated her because she was kind of like not the nicest, but when it came to her teaching, she knew what she was doing. And she just shaped up so much of like my writing skills that I actually ended up being an English major in college. Then I changed my major to psych when I found out about ABA. But initially, that's what I was doing. So I would say that my writing skills are pretty strong. Um, have always been the type of person who can put thoughts better on paper. When I was a kid, actually, like I'll never forget this. When I would get into like arguments with my parents, I would always apologize in writing. Like I couldn't quite come up with the words, but I would write them a little letter and just like slip it down their door. Kind of like expressing myself. That was just always an easier way for me to express myself. So I guess, that's where like the captions would come from is like I consider myself to be pretty good with my written words. Speaking, I'm getting better at speaking. CEUs and all that will definitely shape that up too. But definitely my written words have always been a strength of mine. And then in terms of like images and how to like make them relatable to ABA, it's really just like I just I don't even know how to explain it. Like a meme, for example. I'll take a meme and I'm like, okay. And then I think about what I've already seen. I'm like, I don't want to do that because I feel like that's already out there. But how can we make that a little bit spicier? Like,
Yeah.
what's going on in the field currently that we can take this meme and make it relatable? And so what I've found, like honestly, on Instagram is when you make something funny and relatable, it'll do really well. Like all of my meme posts are probably the best, like, I guess, performing wise than anything else. Like the other stuff, cool, whatever. Sometimes it's like a hit or whatever. But the memes always like people just like that. I guess, not everybody wants to go on Instagram and like see really difficult things all the time. So I definitely try to mix it up. I do cover some like pretty serious stuff, but I don't want to always be doing that. Like I want to give people like and I'll even caption it like, "Hey, I know it's been really hard lately, like the things that are going on in the world, but let's have some fun."
Yes, you do.
Once in a
You
while.
do. You're very much you have your ears to the ground, you know what's going on, and I'm sure that's a lot of what you talk about in your supervision and how you are molding the next generation. But your platform is for whatever you want it to be. And if it's for BCBAs like me to start treating their RBTs with respect and
Mhm.
sass to it. Okay, so we talked a little bit about what's going on in like the ABA field or the ABA culture. What is one mistake that you see aspiring BCBAs or BCBAs making over and over again that you were just like, I'm begging you, just stop doing that.
Okay, okay. I think I got something.
Okay.
So I, because I'm someone who kind of shifted careers a little bit, I do get a lot of questions about that. And I would say for people who are in that position of like they're just either starting grad school or considering grad school, but they already have a little bit of doubt and like, is this what I want to do forever? And as someone who quote unquote made that mistake, which honestly I don't really regret it because things turned out and played out the way that they needed to. However, if I were someone in that situation where it's like, I've never really been sure that ABA was what I wanted forever, ever, ever. I've loved it more in some seasons than others. But some people like will really come to me and say, hey, like I'm not really sure, like, but I'm starting my program, blah, 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 blah. I would say like try to take some time to consider other options in terms of like, I think there are other degrees that could capture both ABA and something else. At least when I was choosing schools, that was a possibility. And it's not like a certificate, it's like you'll get a dual master's, or at least you'll have credits in other areas. So, like my ABA degree, which I think a lot of people could relate, is just applied behavior analysis. So, me going back to school, it's a whole other degree. Whereas I know there are some people who've done like it'll be like a degree in like mental health counseling with an emphasis in applied behavior analysis. So now if you wanted to go back to school, maybe you'll need a couple other classes, but you wouldn't need a whole other degree. So I think if someone is having those doubts, it doesn't mean walk away from ABA because if you like it, that's awesome. But if you maybe want to consider like, hey, maybe I want to do ABA and something more, which I feel like more and more people are tapping into. And I think it's great. As someone like I've mentioned, I get bored easily, so I like to have my options. So maybe just take some time to really assess like what's important to you and maybe make a more like informed decision. I personally just jumped into the school that seemed to be the most affordable one because grad school is expensive and I didn't have any help paying for that. And I'm not saying that's a mistake because hey, like some people like that's what we do what we gotta do. But again, assessing like what can I do, what's feasible, what is gonna fit my goals the best.
I had a similar experience where I didn't find out about ABA until I had already had a master's in psychology. So when people ask me, I really like special ed, but I want to do ABA, I'm like, do both. Do what you want to do, like go to school for special ed and do the certification in ABA, or go to school for social work, go to school for speech, like do what you want to do. You can always tie that into the field, but do what makes you like right now. I'm probably going to be taking like more filming classes and improv classes, and I may even take some more acting classes because it's only going to enhance my skill set as a behavior analyst, as a supervisor, as a trainer, as a public speaker.
Mhm.
When I get down on the floor with the kiddos, now I have all these different characters that I could just pull out of my. So do what you want to do. Like
Yeah.
this field should give you permission to. You don't have to fit in a box like we had to do
Mhm.
today. Now, yeah, there are more restrictions now. So make sure you read up on the steps that you have to take, but also know that we have options.
Yep.
And the
Yep.
more we see representation like Rosie on Instagram and her workbook out there, imagine if you're studying for your BCBA exam and you see this content and you're just laughing and you're like, ooh, eating popcorn. And somebody's like, what are you studying? Like you act like a magazine over there because it's that engaging. So the more we see dissemination being done in a different way, the more we see more diverse clinicians come into the field, we can fill those gaps that are making this field almost unattainable because it's like
Yeah.
snooze fest. I can't stay awake. It's not for me.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And as to your point is like, don't limit yourself, like let's say you already are a BCBA and now you're like questioning, like, hey, there are things that you can consider. It doesn't have to be a whole other degree. It could be a side gig. Like I know one of she's like a close friend of mine, but she was my supervisor. She's now doing photography because she's always loved it. So she's doing both. She's a BCBA and a photographer. So it's like, and she's doing really well in the photography side of things. So it's like, don't limit yourself.
All right, before we end, let's do a rapid fire question. I'm just going to give you some ABA questions. Data collection or documentation? What's worse?
Documentation.
I said the same thing. What is one ABA buzzword that you would be happy to never hear again?
ABAs everywhere.
Oh, I feel like I just said that in this interview. Who is a dream collab in the ABA content creation world?
Hmm. I mean, I love collabing with you.
You are a dream collab for me.
Aw. Like he's gotten really big recently. Jonathan, the sporty guy.
What's his Instagram name? Yes.
Yeah, because I think what he does is super cool because I know that one of my passions is fitness, like we've talked about. So like he takes like his knowledge about exercise and just like movement and he integrates it into ABA and he works, within scope and like sensory things and stuff like that, automatic functions. So I think that's really cool what he's doing. And I mean, I also like you collab with Snabba.
Yeah.
So that was at some point a dream collab of mine and it's come true. If I had more time, I would, but it's really hard. Like I would love to reach out to everybody. I'm like, hey, let's work on all of these 10 million things. But
And an interesting fun fact, both Rosie and I, we dropped our CEUs the same weekend. Was it the same day or the same
the
weekend?
same day,
It's
the
the
same
same
day.
day.
I had no idea. I didn't know you at the time. I was following
Right?
you.
Right? I was like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. So because you put somebody's their Instagram name and then their real name,
Uh-huh.
and you have to try to like put them together. Like,
Right.
I think we broke the internet. It was a jammed-packed day of
Yeah.
like CEUs. That was also like a dream collab of mine because representation matters, right?
Hmm.
And just to click on a website that thousands and thousands of future BCBAs are gonna and BCBAs are going to visit and they see us, they're like,
Hmm.
I can
Yep.
do CEUs now. I can disseminate in this way. I can do supervision. I can what in a sense.
That's when I realized that I was following you. I was like, wait, she looks familiar. And
Yeah.
then I was like, I follow her. And yeah, no, that was a good day. I think your CU was secure the bag, which I loved, by the way. I took it. And
Yeah.
mine was my first CU ever. It was a supervision one.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I watched yours as well because as a supervisor, like I said, I don't think anybody is ever like, I'm a supervisor and I don't need to learn anything else. Like I always try to learn from you, whether that's your CEUs or your Instagram feed, your memes, just how relatable you are. You're not afraid to talk about those difficult topics, but the way you bring it to social media, it's like humanizing. It's like, guys, breathe. We can breathe through this, but let's talk about it.
I
So,
appreciate that.
okay, any last gems for future BCBAs watching this?
Of this week, actually, I was talking to someone who DM'd me, and she was just asking, like, feeling very unsure of herself. And first, I was like, okay, how long have you been a BCBA? Few months, and I'm like, okay, let's take a deep breath.
Yeah.
I feel like new BCBAs tend to have a lot of fear, like, oh my God, like what if I never get it? Like, what if what if I never get better at supervising? What if I never get better at parent training? What if it just doesn't get better? And it's like, okay, take a deep breath. I think that we need to give ourselves grace because, I mean, I like to believe that things are getting better. But
Yeah.
at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that during supervision, people are just not getting and are not learning. And so then you're thrown into the field. And again, I think things hopefully are better now because you do have to be supervised for your first year, so you're not completely on your own the way it was before. But still, that doesn't mean that you're gonna 100% know everything. And even if you have the best supervision experience, there's still things you're just not gonna know till you're in it. And so I think giving ourselves that grace of like, hey, I am new at this and I might suck at first, but I know that I'm gonna get better. And I think also like giving yourself grace doesn't mean like sit back and just, all right, whatever, and like giving up and like I'm gonna be a crappy BCBA for the rest of my life. What it means is like being okay with where you're at right now while also working to get better. So taking CEUs in the areas that you want to grow. There's free things, paid for things, whatever it is. There are ways that you can improve in where you're lacking. And then also the passage of time. The passage of time alone is not going to do it, but it is a
It helps.
part of it. It's a part of it. You have to give it time and experience, both of those things together. So that's basically what I told this person that I was talking to, like give yourself that time. However, take that time to improve and see how you can grow. But yeah, that would be my last piece of advice.
That. And you can do that now in so many different modalities, right? That can be finding a YouTube community, right? Yeah, that could be finding, following Rosie on Behaviorfy and following her community on Instagram because I get a lot of oh, she just read the whole field with that post. Like I need to save that and go back to that for a reflection moment. So CEUs, going to conferences and actually networking with people, the people that you look up to DMing them and saying, hey, can you be my mentor? Can we chat about this situation? So however you choose to grow, I love give yourself grace while doing the work to grow.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I feel like this could have been a CEU with all gems that you dropped in
No,
this.
you're right. You're right. We just need to find a source to cite on
Right,
here.
like, oh, we have to add some ABA buzzwords really quickly so we can meet that requirement. But thank you guys so much for hanging in there with us. Thank you for meeting the wonderful Rosie, Miss Behaviorfy. Check out all of her digital products, whether you are looking to become a BCBA. Follow her on Instagram, follow her on TikTok. Did I see you on TikTok as well?
I am on TikTok, but I am so bad at posting on there. I was
Hey,
actually thinking about the like, oh my God, I have to get better at like, because I know a lot of people post on both, like the same
yeah.
thing, but
And
I'm
it could be
just bad
bad,
at
but it's
it.
still work, right? It's still the
Yeah.
effort of like,
Yeah.
you got to change, you got to edit it differently. You have to,
Yeah.
I get that. Follow her on all of her social media platforms. We're definitely going to put that in the description. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you got anything from this video. And we will see you on the next one.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for
Thank
having me.
you, Aaliyah.